tell today, folks, is one that's really exciting. I call it the Diageo story. It's about the Diageo Lebanon Distillery project that's going on in Kentucky as we speak. It's not just because I'm a big Bullet bourbon fan. That's part of it. But when I heard about a large power user company, Fortune 500 company, teaming with a local distribution co-op, and their G&T in the state, East Kentucky Power, Kentucky's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, I couldn't help but look at it and see what we always talk about, the three legs of the stool, the triangle, powerful shape when we all work together. To bring together on this carbon neutral project took a lot of players and a lot of collaboration. I know that was Gary's favorite buzzword of the day was collaboration. So let's jump into who the players are, and I'll get out of the way and let them tell the story from their perspective on the ground. First, Jerry Carter is the president and CEO of Intercounty Electric Cooperative in Kentucky. He's a Danville County native. Jerry began his utility career with Kentucky Utilities. He served as a service technician and later manager of one of their district offices. In 2001, he became right-of-way manager for Farmers RECC in Glasgow, Kentucky, one of the neighboring co-ops. He was later named to his most recent position before becoming the present CEO, VP of Member and Corporate Services. His duties included economic development, and this is very much an economic development story, as well as key accounts, which we're all on the call today trying to be better at for our members. In addition, we're going to hear from David Cruz. David oversees East Kentucky Power Cooperative's power supply, which includes power supply planning, load forecasting, market operations, fuel supply, and renewable energy projects. Before being at EKPC, David served as manager of the Federal Regulatory Affairs in Raleigh, North Carolina-based Progress Energy Service Company. He also served as the director of coal marketing and trading for Progress Fuels and a director for power trading operation and progress. We'll hear from those gentlemen in just a bit. But first up, I want to have some of our honored guests. You know, the next conference is different because we actually get to hear from our members. We actually get to hear from our key accounts. So two gentlemen here joining us today. First is Andrew Jarek. Andrew leads Diageo North America's environmental and sustainability strategy execution, which is a vital role as they try and achieve their Society 2030 goals. He has an MS degree in environmental management and sustainability, spent over 12 years in various environmental regulatory compliance and sustainability roles. Andrew works across that supply chain to drive improvements, seeking new technologies, best-in-class practices across sustainability, environmental practices, and regulation. While the leading implementation of Diageo North America's environmental sustainability strategy to achieve annual and long-term sustainability goals, he's focused on delivery of the roadmaps for carbon neutral operations through both energy efficiency and fuel conversion to renewables, those low and zero carbon sources. And last but not least, batting cleanup, we have Kirk Davidson. Kirk is a procurement manager for Diageo. He's been there 7.5 years doing supply chain and procurement for the beverage alcohol category. He spent time in Illinois, U.S. Virgin Islands, Connecticut, and now Kentucky, which is the focus of our story today. He has experience in project management, continuous improvement, planning, and strategic procurement. He spent the last 4.5 years managing the raw materials and energy procurement categories in support of Diageo's distillation and maturation with focus on renewable energy. So I think we got two great candidates today. No further ado, Andrew, Kirk, please take it away. And thank you and welcome to the next conference.
And thanks for having us, Scott. So just as a quick introduction to Diageo here, for those of you that may not know, Diageo is a global leader in beverage alcohol with outstanding brands from global leaders like Bulleit, Johnny Walker, Crown Royal, vodkas, Smirnoff, Ciroc, and Kettle One, tequilas, Casamigos, and Don Julio. Back in November of 2020, we announced our Society 2030 Spirit of Progress plan, which covers a wide range of bold and ambitious goals tied to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals around promoting positive drinking, championing inclusion and diversity, and pioneering grain-to-glass sustainability. Within that sustainability goals, we're looking to preserve water for life, accelerate to a low-carbon world, and become sustainable by design. Diageo is recognized as a AA in CDP, as well as in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So go ahead to the next slide. Diageo really started our sustainability journey in earnest in 2008 with our first release of sustainability goals that took us up to 2020. And through the first portion of our goals, we did reduce our carbon footprint in half. Now, largely that was through various different certificates, attributes, and so we look at the next decade as the decade of action, right? As the UN has said, this is our time to act to address climate change, and so our goals are for our global operations to be net zero carbon by 2030, using science-based targets, powered by 100% renewable energy, and also to partner with our supply base. The majority of our emissions come from our supply, and so we understand that, and we want to partner with our suppliers to make sure that they're improving their carbon footprints as well. Go ahead to the next slide. With that background, let me introduce you to the Lebanon project. So our intention for a new distillery was announced in December of 2018, and we broke ground in the summer of 2019. The original plans did contain many features to focus on energy efficiency. We do look very closely at the amount of energy consumed to produce 1 liter of our product, and it's one of our key metrics that we track. And so we do look at energy efficiency, environmental impacts like water efficiency, zero waste to landfill. But the initial design did not include a carbon neutral operations. But as we got closer to understanding what 2030 would look like and how we as an organization can make an impact, our executive challenged the project team to deliver the distillery with carbon neutral operations. And so as the project team pivoted to look at, how can we best produce the distillery operations while maintaining carbon neutral operations, beneficial electrification became one of the clear answers for us. And so we looked to electrify the heat generation through electrode boilers, combined with 100% renewable electricity. And so that's where then that partnership with the local co-ops, EKPC, came in to look at how are they able to supply us with that electricity demand for an electrode boiler with using 100% renewable electricity. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Kirk, who will take you through our journey with the procurement of that electric supply.
Thanks, Andrew, and we can take over to the next slide, please. I think it's super important when we talk about not just the what and the why, which I think it's a great lead-in to talk about our future 10-year ambitions, but it's also important to talk about the how. And for us in Diageo in North America, this was a fundamental shift in our approach to managing Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions for Diageo. So if we look at what we've done globally in the last few years, in India, in Africa, in our European market, we have announced and implemented various projects such as co-products to RNG, solutions in Europe, biomass and solar, in Africa, biodiesel and other types of low carbon projects in India. But really in North America, our journey is just beginning to accelerate now, and move away from kind of relying on or leveraging unbundled RECs, power RECs, or RNG certificates, which is it played a big role in how we achieved our 2020 goals. But our internal stakeholders, our investors, being a public company, as well as our customers, we do believe they expect more. They want kind of an organic solution, a long-term solution, a transparent solution that kind of is tangible to touch and feel, and look at. So when we talk about what did this mean for us as a project team, it was a large scale shift. Not quite mid-project, but early on in the project, where the original business case did not, include this carbon neutrality piece of it. There are many impacts, of course, of diving into that post-project kickoff, and the relationship internally with our business partners and our stakeholders, and then externally with our utilities, Intercounty Energy, Cooperative Corporation, and East Kentucky Power played a key role in unlocking this solution for us. So when we talk about how do we determine this was even a feasible solution, how did we get there? I think looking at that bottom right stakeholder map, it's probably short selling all of the stakeholders who were involved too, but we had finance, operations, procurement, engineering, technical, externally our utilities, our external counsel, all working towards a common goal, knowing that it was the right thing to do. And I think that played a big part for us, keeping the end in mind, the deliverable in mind, while working through how do we actually make this a reality. Intercounty Energy and East Kentucky Power can't really say enough about how they supported us, from an operational standpoint, engineering, feasibility, regulatory, procurement, as well. Would say that between Andrew and technical, the project manager on the ground in Kentucky, and then myself in procurement, we were kind of the go-between between the contractors, the electrical contractors, the general contractor, and then the utilities as well. So when we're looking at different engineering estimates, on load factor, load profile, overall consumption, to kind of determine how we were going to approach this, we really streamlined things by getting ourselves in a room, putting things up on the whiteboard, and talking through all of the different scenarios. A little bit more focused internally would be education and our stakeholder management plan. Educating early and often was a key pillar to our approach, and getting with finance, multiple times and very often to do a risk-based approach based on future commodity prices, what's going to happen in the wind and solar market, how did it compare to some of our assumptions on renewable natural gas, and how did we do those comparisons. So it was really something that we thought maybe would not be in Diageo's DNA to actually go ahead and get approval and execute this type of project with full electrification of operations, because we knew on the heels of this announcement and buying the electric boilers, that is not at all where the project would start or stop. We did enter into a 15-year agreement on the heels of this. Maybe I'm offhand saying this is the first 15-year agreement in North America's history. I'm sure there's some, but on the supply side, this was certainly kind of an uphill battle to get an approval on such a long agreement. When we think about specifically for what we're building this distillery for, which is to support our North American whiskey portfolio and Bulleit bourbon. 4 or 5 years ago, we actually broke ground on a different, our first Kentucky distillery. And by the time we put the shovel in the ground, actually our growth was outpacing the business case, and we said we might need a new one. So to think about what the situation, where the world will be, where Diageo and Bulleit will be in 10 to 15 years, I think it's a testament to the business partnering internally and externally for us to really make this a reality. We can go quickly to the next slide as well. And I think what really resonated with me was Gary, who just spoke, talking about what to do and how to do it. Talk about education, collaboration, promoting. That's something that we maybe we didn't have those words in mind, but that's certainly when I look back on what we did, that was our approach. So we met with a regular cadence to step through regulatory, financial, contracting, possibilities, complexities. Clearly, a couple, key items in the contract language to overcome in terms of, future risk, in terms of, depending on what the renewable market will do, how we will make EKPC and Indiana County whole, how will we, satisfy the Public Service Commission's concerns and make sure that, Diageo, while our corporate ambition and local ambition is being satisfied, how do we make sure that other customers are not put at risk? And we were able to work through all of those things hand in hand on the ground, and I think, in a really professional and transparent way that will leave a good taste in everyone's mouth at Diageo, which is really good to see. We had already standing steering committee meetings internally for the project, and then we added actually another layer of standing meetings specifically for this project and in the electrification and carbon neutral side of things, and added a monthly exec meeting where we came in with our exec summary, our updates, our escalations, and that was a key pillar for us to, over the course of 3 or 4 months, where we did decide that electrification looked like the leading option, to take that all the way through alignment and then approval. Talked a little bit about finance as well, the sensitivity analysis that we ran. We did have a variance from the first business case, which did not include carbon neutral operations. But we did step through that, multiple times, look at the different models, scenarios, and something that was on the previous slide that, I think I'd be remiss not to mention, that may be unique for Diageo. We certainly were happy to have it, is the tie-in with our commercial and brand ambition. So Diageo as a whole, multinational beverage alcohol company, but Diageo isn't a brand. Bulleit Bourbon is a brand. So we had our Bulleit brand team and our commercial folks in the room with us talking about what does this mean for our brand sustainability platform? How does this line up with our 5 to 10 year plan? Can we leverage this for consumer marketing purposes and messaging? And that was really something that I think was a catalyst for us all along the way. Was we had the Bulleit brand team saying, we want to do this. How do we make this happen? How do we leverage the story, the communication, the transparency, and having them in the room to sign up for it was a huge help for us. And we truly believe that the experience with this project and the success that we've had to date with our utilities and leveraging beneficial electrification will lay the groundwork for future either brownfield builds, greenfield builds, or just future capex and opex projects for our existing sites as we work towards accelerating to a low carbon future. I think our next slide is just for some questions, if we're going to take them now or potentially later at the end of the session after Intercounty and East Kentucky Power. This was our one pager that we released with our news release about it, and it has some of the features and benefits of electrification of operation, how we leveraged our brand Bulleit Frontier Whiskey, the Bulleit trademark and portfolio, and that we will be reducing or avoiding over 100,000 metric tons of carbon every year. So all around a really great story for Bulleit and Diageo. We will look forward to what the future holds for us.
And that's great. Thank you, guys. We're going to go to Jerry Carter at Intercounty Energy. He's the president and CEO there. We will get to some questions later with our panel. But Jerry, as the distribution co-op on the ground, your wires going to their building, you guys being kind of, hey, we're hosting you. Welcome to our town. How did this project go for you? We want to hear about, as a distribution co-op, taking on such a big project, how that went.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's actually a remarkable story of a small project that, with great teamwork, diligence, and collaboration, achieved the first all-electric 100% renewable energy carbon neutral distillery. It's a great project. We're very happy to have Diageo here. It's great to see Kirk again, although I don't get to see him in person like we used to. Good morning, Andrew. What I want to do is dive a little bit deeper in. They gave you, Andrew and Kirk gave you the Diageo 35,000 foot level, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into it. And actually, Gary Cornett's presentation is really how you can take, we basically used Gary's presentation, didn't know it, and instituted a practical case and how we were able to take a distillery and turn it into, that was a small distillery, a natural gas fired distillery, and turn it into a beneficial electrification project. Actually, I think personally, I think it's much deeper than just beneficial electrification. We were able to assist our member, in this case Diageo, in achieving their goals and objectives. And that was very key for us because that kind of brought us back into our true cooperative mission of commitment to the member, commitment to the community, and innovation. And I do want to say that for all the other energy managers, this was a greenfield site. However, this can be done on an existing site, existing plant, store, whatever. This one just happened to be a greenfield site. As I mentioned earlier, this started out as a smaller project. As mentioned, December 18 was the announcement. Didn't really get ground broken and construction started until June of 2019. There had been some discussions prior to that about renewable energy, but they really didn't take hold until June of 2019. This was a 3 megawatt facility to begin with, which is a good load. But when you do the electrode boilers, it turns into a 27 to 35 megawatt project. And as you know, that's a much different load. A 3 megawatt project will take a little bit of upgrades on your distribution center or system, but a 30 megawatt project requires a transmission line and a new substation, all keeping in mind that the completion date never changed from November 1st, 2020. So we went from basically 17 months and actually not even final approval. That was in November 1st. We had 12 months to get a transmission line and substation installed. And again, we had an internal team just like Diageo did. And I want to thank East Kentucky Power, David Cruz, his team. And there's many people to thank at East Kentucky Power because we met the completion date. Actually, for the first 4.5 months, this project was actually a dual track project because it had not been decided to be a totally carbon neutral distillery. There was natural gas and electricity infrastructure being installed. One thing I do want to say is the way I feel about this project is Diageo, the Bullet Distillery, is Intercounty Energy's member. So we felt responsible in meeting their objectives of their renewable energy objectives and bringing East Kentucky Power in to the table. We represented the member, and that's how we feel we work best. And I will go back to David Cruz, who will talk more about the renewable energy and the green energy tariff, which, as what Kirk alluded to, are a Public Service Commission regulated cooperative. So everything we do, whether it be a tariff, special contract, has to go through the regulatory process with the Public Service Commission. And if any cooperative is on that has a PSC, that you understand the pitfalls and the trials with that. And really, when I think about it, I want to get time for some questions. So I'm going to get to the key takeaways of this for a cooperative to actually put Gary's plan into action. And it's really simple. You stay true to your cooperative roots. The cooperative roots are local, they're member owned, and they're here for what is best for the member. And it's not just about building relationships with your members, it's also executing for your members, action over words. And I think that is very key in this situation and this endeavor. One thing that I see is, since this was a small project, is sometimes an organization has sustainability goals and objectives, but lack the know-how to achieve those objectives. That's where we come in as a distribution cooperative and a generation and transmission cooperative. We have to step in because, make no mistake, if we don't step in and assist our members, somebody else will. We did enter into this project with not just a can we mindset, but with a how-to mindset. Just because of how that mindset's a little bit different. It's not as asking if it can be done. It's choosing to say it can be done and how we achieve it. I cannot tell you or stress enough about communication. I got a chuckle when Kirk mentioned regular cadence on our communication. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the project manager here, project manager at the distillery, Tom Nauheisel, because again, this was ground broken and starting to be built as a natural gas boiler facility and changing. And then, these plans did not include an electro boiler when they started construction. So Gray Construction, Intercounty Energy, East Kentucky Power, Diageo, all sat around tables before COVID for many, many hours figuring out the how to. And I'm just going to end with this. Yes, this was a very big project. It was the first one that I'd have ever been a part of, but it was an extremely enjoyable project, really because of the mindset of all three entities, Diageo, Intercounty, and East Kentucky Power, to keep your eye on the end game, to keep your eye on the ball, and to deliver for your member. And with that, I will turn it over to David Cruz.
Well, first, I'd like to thanks for being invited to participate today. This has been I agree with Jerry. It was a great project, and it was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed working with Diageo on it. So, if you would go to just Scott, advance me. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this shows we're a PJM member. We joined PJM in 2013. We've got a cooperative solar facility. We are also a SEPA customer and take quite a bit of hydro energy. We also have landfill gas plants in addition to conventional generation. You can see our members and where they're located. And I would, if you want to know more about us, go to our website and you can learn all about EKPC. Next slide, please. So I want to, Diageo, Jerry knew that we had filed or were getting ready to file a green tariff pilot. I don't even know that the green tariff pilot was filed when we first started working on this project. And it didn't get approved until, what was it? Somewhere after we had already gotten far along on the negotiation. So we were working on this, and if we didn't get our green tariff, we would have filed it as a special contract at the Public Service Commission. So our contract with Diageo was approved in November by the Public Service Commission, and we were all on edge to, not that we were worried about it, but we wanted to get that approval. Next slide, please. So with regard to our tariff goals, as we looked at a number of tariffs to try to approach, how we would do green energy to our members. We had a tariff that supplied RECs already. We had the cooperative solar, which we'll talk about a little bit, but we needed an additional tariff to work with our members. We needed to give them more choice. We were, one of the key things was to get them renewable energy, but without causing any cross-subsidization from non-participating members. And that's important because to be able to get it through the commission, you're going to have to prove that the balance of your members are not subsidizing the participants in the green tariff. And another thing that the commission is going to be looking for us is a recovery of all legacy fixed cost in addition. So next slide, please. So the green tariff provision that we have, I talked about it earlier, is allow RECs, and then the, option B allows a member to work through EKPC to get a renewable contract for solar, wind, or a additional green resource that they might be interested in. It's going to always require an approval by the Public Service Commission, and it's a time-consuming effort to get this done. So we require that we go at least out for a 1 megawatt block, and right now it's a commercial and industrial type of product. We're purchasing more energy than a customer needs creates a lot of complexities that with regard to credit and how to settle. So we really don't want to be purchasing more energy than a customer is going to actually use in a year. Next slide, please. So the way that this works is we have a three-party contract between our member, our owner member, a distribution cooperative, and EKPC. Minimum contract would be 5 and generally 15. As Kirk said, it was an issue for Diageo to go to 15 years, but for us to find a counterparty that's willing to build a solar farm or any type of renewable energy resource, they're looking for a contract that is financeable, and 15 years is about what it takes to get a project financeable. They get to choose the type of energy that they're looking for or the resource. We handle the PPA process because we're in PJM. Congestion can create a lot of excess cost, and we have to make sure that the project that we pick doesn't create a congestion issue for EKPC and its other members. So there's a number of complications that are associated with being a PJM member, and we take care of those issues for the member. One of the neat things here is, and Diageo actually has a plant on Shelby Energy and Intercounty. If they had chosen to, we could have done a green PPA purchase that could cover both of those facilities at one time. We didn't go that route, but a member can aggregate multiple member loads and come up and go with us on an energy project. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. I'm going to tell you, we're going to go through financially how this works at a high level. So let's go to the next slide. So the way that we approach the issue that members not be subsidized is that the member that's going to participate in the green tariff continues to have a general service tariff, and they get a customer charge, energy charge, demand, fuel adjustment, and environmental surcharge. So they get a bill just like they have always gotten, and that fairly distributes all the costs that the member distribution company and EKPC have associated with serving that member. And this is how we satisfy the commission that there's no cross-subsidization occurring. Next slide, please. Then in the renewable tariff rider, what what Diageo or a participating member in the green tariff gets is they get a credit for the fuel or purchase power that we purchase that's included in the base energy charge, and then they get a credit for the fuel adjustment charge, and then they get a credit for the variable environmental surcharge, which has both fixed and variable cost into it. So they get their base bill, a credit, and then we assign the cost of the renewable energy that we purchase for them. So next slide, please. Next slide. So we've got a cooperative solar one project. It's a share project. Whether you're a commercial industrial customer or retail customer, you can purchase or you can lease panels out of our project. Diageo chose to license about 337 panels. It's based on a kind of a load ratio share of how much their load is to the total EKPC and EKPC load. Next slide. We'll talk about this just a little bit more. Our project's 32,300 panels, 30,400 fixed, 1,900 trackers. We wanted to get some idea of how much more energy we were going to get from the trackers versus the fixed. You can see the panels. The total was projected to be 8.5, but we're actually seeing around a megawatt more during the best days of the year. And we financed it with clean renewable energy bonds. Next slide, please. So the way this works is you pay an upfront fee, $460 a panel, and then you get the energy from these panels over 25 years. We own and operate it and make it easy, and then you get a credit on your monthly bill for the value of the energy produced. And so the way that the Diageo structure is that we figure out how much energy they need, and then we're doing a PPA for the base amount. Then we're filling from the base amount up to essentially to the total energy with RECs. And some people don't like RECs, but when we're trying to perfectly match the energy and make somebody 100% renewable, RECs is a good kind of shock absorber for filling up the final little amount that a customer needs. And we can't forecast exactly how much energy a solar project is going to produce. We can't predict exactly how much energy Diageo is going to consume in a year. It allows us to go out and contract for a set amount of capacity and energy or for a project, and then finalize on an annual basis, and finish filling up the bucket of renewable energy with RECs. And then they also get a credit on their bill for the RECs and the energy that is produced by their participation in cooperative solar. So that's a high-level look at how it works. And I think that finishes up my slides. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Let me thank Diageo for getting involved with us on this, because like I said, when we first started working on this, our tariff had not been approved. We worked through it. They're our first customer to take advantage of the renewable energy or the green tariff. I'd also like to thank a couple of our folks here at EKPC, Scott Drake and Joe Settles. They worked really hard to get the green tariff filed and approved at the Public Service Commission. So it's really been, and I have to agree with Jerry that it was key that we all worked together towards a common goal on this, and we had a tremendous amount of transparency on the front end as we worked through to get the PPA finalized with the bidders that we have on the RFP right now. We've had Diageo and Scott, Kirk, and Andrew completely in our meetings and have had complete transparency there, and it's been a very, very great project.